Hello, my name is Gayle Delaney.
And my name is Loma. We're going to illustrate how we work with dreams. We have 4 guests here tonight: Belinda, Ron, Elaine, and Scott, who have been kind enough to bring us their dreams and their questions to help us with a practical demonstration of how we use our descriptive definition technique for dream interpretation.
The fundamental hypothesis that we use in working with dreams is that dreaming is a very sophisticated form of thinking that is primarily visual and that follows its own associative logic, which is why dreams often seem very illogical from the waking point of view. If you learn to understand your dreams, you'll find they are very, very carefully structured. The advantages of this kind of thinking are that when we dream, we are more honest with ourselves. We are often far less defensive, and we're willing to look at the facts of any given situation. We're willing to look at how we really feel about something, what we really think. We're willing to perceive more openly some of the subtle cues that we get while we're awake, that while we're awake we don't really want to look at. So that when you're asleep and dreaming, you often have access to a much larger spectrum of experience, and so you're better at making decisions. You're often much better at assessing your everyday life situations. You look at things from a perspective that helps you to see, oh, I've had a success here. I can face it. I can say, yes, I have had a success, rather than constantly putting myself down, for instance. Or you'll find that you're better at recognizing problems you didn't even know you had. Problems in your own personality or problems in relationships. You might recognize them long before they become big and terribly important. And then you'll find that you're better at solving problems, often while you sleep. Again, because you're looking at the picture, a larger perspective. And because of this, and also because we tend to be more creative when we sleep, we tend to be more risk-taking, more playful, we can often generate wonderful new ideas to help us in our everyday living or in our work. It's because of these functions of dreams that many cultures have taken advantage of dreams throughout their history. The ancient Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Chinese, the Hebrews have all used their dreams. And there are many, many famous dream examples. For instance, in biblical accounts, we know of Joseph's interpretations of Pharaoh's dreams. We have the dream of Jacob's ladder. There are the dreams of 3 wise men. There are many dreams throughout the early church history in which dreams were very important. In many spiritual traditions, dreams played a vital role. Before Muhammad produced the Quran, he had a series of dreams which led him into his understanding of the universe. In the night journey dreams, dreams of 1001 nights. Many, many artists have used dreams in their work. Musicians like Brahms and Beethoven and Stravinsky have used dreams. Wagner used his dreams again and again. He, in fact, dreamt the prelude to Das Rheingold. And he said of Tristan and Isolde that, I dreamed all this. Never could my poor mind have thought of such a thing. And William Blake, the poet, the engraver, the artist, used his dreams again and again. He used his dreams for instruction in actual painting. Actually, in one dream, he dreamt of his deceased brother teaching him a brand new form of illuminated engraving, which he could afford to do at his home, and made him eventually quite famous. Not wealthy, but famous. The popular story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde came to Robert Louis Stevenson in a dream. In fact, Stevenson said that he did over half of his work while he was asleep because he had these characters he called his little brownies who would help him out in his dreams, and when he was in a tight spot, he'd say, I really need a dream for a story. And sure enough, the brownies would produce a dream for him.
Scientists have also attributed a number of their discoveries to dreams. For example, over 100 years ago, Auguste Kekulé had a dream in which he saw a snake swallowing its tail. He interpreted this dream to the conceptualization of the benzene ring, which revolutionized chemistry. About 50 years ago, Otto Louis had a dream which designed for him specifically an elegant experiment for which he won the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine. This experiment demonstrated the biochemical nature of nerve impulse transmission. Now, both of these discoveries opened doors to the new fields of synthetics, medications, and biochemistry. Now, famous people not only have such dreams as these that are recorded for history, but they also have the everyday dreams that we all share that deal primarily with such things as love, relationships, personal development, and new ideas.
These issues are dealt with in any variety of amazing dreams, but you'll also find that there are common dream themes which many of us share. And what you have to remember is that my dream of a tidal wave won't mean the same thing as Loma's dream or as someone else's dream of a tidal wave. You have to ask the dreamer questions. For instance, in a tidal wave of one of my clients, she always had to protect herself and her son from this tidal wave. And I asked her, what are tidal waves like? And she said, they are overwhelming and they will just simply kill everything in their way. And I asked her, does that remind you of anything? And she said, it reminds me of my husband's alcoholism. And she had to protect herself and her son from that. Someone else's tidal wave dream might mean something entirely different. For instance, have any of you here had a dream of any natural catastrophe or difficulty?
I had a dream while I was in California of an impending earthquake, and that was very significant to me.
How was it significant to you?
I think it represented to me an explosion in my own thinking about my career. And eventually, shortly after that, I left California to do other things.
Well, now, for you, then, an earthquake was representative of an explosion or an upheaval, and you saw where it fit because you're good at working with your dreams. Someone else might say, oh, I had a dream and I live in California, it was an earthquake, there's going to be an earthquake soon, it must be psychic. I'm afraid that that hasn't proven to be the case. Usually, the upheaval is within yourself. People who have dreams, for instance, of nuclear war will often say, oh, and here is the end. But if you ask them to describe a nuclear war, it might be another terrible event. Maybe there's a divorce in the family. Maybe there's some terrible event from which there will be a lot of fallout going on. And that's usually more useful to the dreamer than waiting until someday when we have the nuclear explosion.
Could it also mean the fact that something inside of them is ending?
It could well mean that, and it simply depends on what the dreamer tells us. Describe to me nuclear war or a tornado or an earthquake, and then see what the dreamer tells you. And then say to the dreamer, does that remind you of something in my life? Has that reminded you of an upheaval and explosion? Now, there's also a very common dream of falling. Many people dream of falling. And what you can say to yourself is, when I fall, I'm not going to wake up. Because people are very afraid that if they hit the ground, they'll die. That's not true. You will continue to live. And you'll remember more of your dream, and it will give you more cues to what your dream means. Very often when you're falling, have any of you fallen in a dream?
Yes, I had a very bad experience of falling. I dreamed I fell off of a cliff, and I woke up before I hit the ground.
Okay, and you were frightened, correct?
Very frightened.
If you'd stayed in the dream, you might have found out more. You might have begun to fly, you might have just seen someone at the bottom, or you might have awakened. But don't ever worry, it's okay to continue a dream. You often get more information. And dreams of falling often, especially if you're going off a cliff, and it all depends on the details of the dream, will have to do with you're feeling pushed over a cliff, or you're right on the edge, and you're taking too great risks in your life. You're losing control. Are you out of control? Ask yourself those questions. Is there some way I'm falling from a position of power and afraid? All of those things will not be true. One basic meaning will be true for you of a particular dream. There's another common dream image that people are often very afraid to talk about, which is, let's say that you're married and you're having an affair with someone who is not your wife. Well, it's not the sort of dream you wake up and tell your wife because she knows what it means.
Or your husband.
Or your husband. And so what you do with a dream like that is, let's say you're the husband having a dream of an affair with another woman. Describe that other woman. Describe her in detail. She might be a movie star, she might be a woman around the block. And then as you describe her, see if you're not describing some part of your own wife that you haven't been appreciating lately. Very, very often, the other woman or the other man in the dream is simply a part of your partner that you haven't been fully appreciating. If you're having a good time or if you're having a bad time with this other person, a part of your wife or your husband that you're having difficulty getting along with. There's another dream that's known as the examination dream, many people have, where, oh, let's say you have to take your Latin exam and you can't find the classroom, or you get there and the exam is in French, Or you've been studying Portuguese all year and the exam is in Latin and you can't remember anything. Those dreams often come at a time long after you're out of school when you're facing another challenge or another test in life and you're not prepared for it. The details of the dream again will tell you, are you not prepared? Are you looking in the wrong place? Have you been studying the wrong thing for the challenge that you're really ready to face?
And for years when I was an actor in Los Angeles, I would have dreams about going on the stage and not being prepared or not having any clothes on, or learning the wrong lines of a play and everyone else is doing another play.
Were you under a lot of stress at that time?
Oh, a lot of stress, yeah.
And those dreams, when you're under specific stress and it takes you to your specific acting example, could very well be an anxiety dream where you're just so anxious, everything, you play through the worst possible scenario.
Right.
There might be more to it than that. You have to see. And it would be hard now to go back to that time, because the easiest dreams you'll have to work on will be the newest, freshest dreams, because then you can remember all the details of your feeling. But there's a couple of possibilities there.
Has anybody had dreams of being chased? Because that's another common theme.
Yes, I have. I dreamed that two men were chasing me, and they had guns and knives, and they were really trying to kill me. And I was really furious in the
Furious,
dream.
angry.
Yes.
And not terrified.
Both.
Both.
Dreams of being chased are very common dreams, especially for females. So men will be chased often by other things, but the man with the gun or the knife is such a common dream. And you have to ask yourself, what am I running from? When I'm being chased by something in a dream, say, what am I running from? And the way to find that out is to describe the aggressor. A man with a gun or a knife. Is that an aggressive person, a mean person? Is there something in your life you're running away from that's hard to deal with? Sometimes it has to do with a woman's aggression, or her sexuality, that's possible. Her own sense of power sometimes is the case. And I had one client who was running dream after dream after dream from a man who had a knife. And finally she said, next time I have this dream, I'm not going to wake up in terror. I'm going to try to stay in the dream and find out more about it. You can sort of train yourself this way over and over in time. And so in the dream, here comes the man with the knife. It's in a laboratory setting. She said, all right, this time I'm going to take you into the light where I can see you. And she grabs the man with the knife, struggles with him into the daylight, and he suddenly turns into a puddle. And she bent down and she tasted the puddle, and it was Hennessy cognac. It was the drink that her father, the alcoholic, always drank. She realized, without doing much more interpretive work with that dream, she had been running from her father in a lot of her relationships with peer men. She kept being afraid that it's her father coming after her again, the alcoholic who was always hurting her and cutting her. Could be different from many different people, but she stayed in the dream and she found out the identity of the aggressor.
That's interesting.
So common dream themes are special to each person. So just because we all share a dream with a man running after us with a knife doesn't mean we're all dreaming about the same thing. We have to look to the details. Take courage, see if you can stay in the dream. If not, simply describe the dreamer later. And remember that all of your dreams are specific to you at a specific time in your life.
One of the fun dreams is dreams about flying. Has anybody had dreams about flying?
Oh, I've had several dreams about flying.
What did it feel like? Can you tell us?
Well, it feels good, it's fun, but it's not a feeling that you experience in this material world at all.
So it's a new kind of feeling.
Exactly.
Can you say a little bit about how it's good, how it's fun, how you enjoy it?
Gee, you're in control, you can go fast. In my dream, I've been the only person that has flown, so I'm not bound to the limitations that the other people have, whereas I've had dreams where I've had to meet deadlines or get somewhere very quickly, and it was impossible to do, so I've flown and gotten there when everyone else couldn't because they were walking or something like that. And it feels very good. The wind's blowing at you and you got a big picture of what's going on. And
That's interesting. Are there times when you're under a lot of pressure where you're able to sort of rise above it and just soar? Have you ever had that feeling?
Maybe I need to start flying again.
Maybe you
I'm
need
under a
to.
lot of pressure right now.
There might be a state of mind that you can rekindle that is like the one shown to you in your dream. And you can often do that. There are many different kinds of flying dreams, actually. Some dreams you're the only one who can fly, and some dreams you might be teaching other people how to fly. You might be practicing the technique of flying. Do you have to flap both wings, or is it just a state of mind? Some people move a finger and they can fly. Some people fly and are afraid of certain wires. And you have to again look, are you flying and having trouble keeping altitude? Are you afraid of crashing?
I was flying once, and some people were throwing rocks at me, trying to hit me and bring me down.
So you might ask yourself, is that going on in your life? Are your peers or some people, see if you can find out more about those people, trying to bring you down? Or are you acting like that toward yourself? Because remember, all of the images in your dream represent some part of your life. It may represent a part of you. The people might be a part of you. They might represent some of your family members. They might represent some of your peers. You can only find out how the dream image fits by describing the image and the feeling. I felt like I was being shot down. When have you felt like that in your life? When you were soaring. Here you are soaring and someone's trying to shoot you down.
Okay, let's do that. Let's take a look at some common symbols that people have in dreams and define them and describe them. Usually when we look at a dream, there are three categories of symbols that we would use. One is the setting of the dream, which would be a place, and that may change from scene 1 or scene 2 of the dream. Another is person and things in the dream. People in the dreams need to be defined, their personalities described so that we have a good sense of who they are. And things, what that thing is and what the feeling of the dreamer is about that particular thing. Let's take cats, for example. Has anybody had any dreams about cats? We can just define them as a symbol if not. Anybody got any ideas about cats?
When I grew up, both my mother and father did not like cats, and that was very clear, and cats were not allowed in the house, and one thing and another. So I've never dreamt about them in any way.
But if you did, that would be interesting. Now, if you dreamt of a cat, you might be dreaming about something that your parents did not like, did not approve of. So let's just pretend for a minute. Tell me what cats are like.
Quick, clever, small, devious.
Devious. Interesting. So we'd have to see whether your cat in the dream is being quick, clever, and devious, or just plain devious, or just plain quick and clever. And then we'd ask you, if you told us right away, if your associations were that my parents can't stand it, were your parents particularly judgmental about those parts of yourself? I had a client once who had a dream of a gray cat who was trying to get into a tall, beautiful ship that she was on. And in the dream, she kept closing the windows, the portholes, and saying to the cat, out, out, my husband is allergic to you. He can't stand cats. Get out of here. And I asked her what cats are like, and she said, well, they're very nimble, very quick, as you said, but my husband is very allergic to them and cannot tolerate them. I see, and this was a gray cat. She said, well, now that you mention it, there's been a man in my life who's been making passes at me. And I didn't think I was very attracted to him, but my dream's acting as if he's getting onto my relationship. And I'm trying to get him out, saying that my husband's allergic to you, our marriage cannot tolerate your being in my life. And the dream helped to confirm for her her decision not to carry on with him, but also helped her to see, here's a problem. You're more interested in this than you thought. It's right in your dreams.
Would someone else have a different definition of a cat?
Yeah, cats are weird. They're crazy. They make funny noises, and they see things that aren't there. They paw at stuff that's not there. They're strange.
Okay, so an entirely different kind of picture of a cat. And we'll often find that, which is why it's very important to ask each dreamer what each thing is and not to assume that we know what it's all about. Okay, let's take a setting. Anybody have a setting?
I had a very explicit dream that involved an opera house. And I was at an opera all very dressed up in tails and everything with a bunch of other men. And during the intermission of the opera, I went out into the foyer, and I was part of a party of people, and the person who was in that party was Ronald Reagan.
Okay, so here we have a setting and a person. Let's take a look at opera. What is opera?
Extravagant, costly, expensive, and luxurious. Something for the rich, something for highbrow or sophisticated, that kind of thing.
Okay. Would anyone have a different definition? If you were dreaming of opera, would you have something different to say?
I've only been to one, and it's something different and unusual, and I don't understand them.
Okay. So for you, it would be different, unusual, and incomprehensible in some way or other. How about you, Belinda? What would you, how would you define an opera?
Well, I'm kind of down-to-earth person. And I don't particularly like being around people that I feel uncomfortable around.
So you feel uncomfortable in an operatic environment.
Yeah.
Right. Now, Scott had a dream where his opera is going to be a very different setting. Does that remind you of anything, the description you gave us?
The only thing I can think of that might tie in would be the fact that the house that I live in is perhaps theatrical in some way, because an opera is very often larger than life. And the setting that I live in is very much larger than life.
Okay. So when you have a dream that fits very neatly like that, it probably means that the dream is addressing a problem in your home, a problem of your life, in essence, your home life. And the other character that you mentioned in a dream that we should take a look at would be Ronald Reagan. Could you describe Ronald Reagan? We're from Mars. We never heard of him. Could you tell us who is this man? What kind of a personality does he
Well, of
have?
course, he's the President of the United States. He's a leader. He has a lot of power. Somewhat isolated from people, and associates with the upper class, which you would do in an opera. Somewhat insensitive to the lower class and that type of thing.
Okay. Now, what is he doing in the dream?
He's milling around the foyer during intermission.
All right. And then what happens?
I come upon, there's a woman lying on a chaise lounge, and she is of Asian extraction, and she has nothing on. She is naked, but she's not beautiful at all. She's burned, severely burned, and people are walking by her like, you know, she could be a stick of furniture, not caring at all.
And what is an Asian woman? If I were a Martian and never seen one before, how do you tell one human from another? What's an Asian woman?
I suppose, I guess, poverty, alone, desolate, no one to take care of her, no one to love her.
Okay, so is there that quality to someone in your life, probably someone in your life at home, since the dream is set probably at home? Is there that quality to someone?
I think more than anything, it was probably part of me.
Do you feel that way from time to time?
Yeah, a feeling like I wasn't being appreciated or wasn't being noticed.
Okay.
Have you felt burned?
Sometimes I feel burned in my relationship with my wife, that I do something and she doesn't appreciate it, and so kind of a burning sensation.
Okay. Now, in the dream, Ronald Reagan and the men at the opera. Here are the men in this beautiful operatic setting.
Yeah.
Elegant,
All the
highbrow.
men are quite insensitive, as you say. They just pass by. They're insensitive to this woman's pain. Is that accurate?
Absolutely.
Right. Is there a part of you that's like Ronald Reagan, the way you would describe him, as an insensitive person who relates more to the opera than to the woman who's burned, those feelings of being burned and of, what did you say, alone?
Yeah.
Desolate.
Desolate.
I don't think so. I think I tend to be more sensitive and caring, especially of other people's feelings.
How about of your own?
I perhaps at times am insensitive as to my own needs.
Okay. Is that the part of you, for example, that's the leader, that's the head of the household? Or
At times, yeah. I oftentimes put my wife's needs and her concerns above my own or in front of my own.
So in this dream, we're looking at the Asian woman as a representative of your feelings, not of your wife. It doesn't have to go according to sex boundaries. You have to look at the feeling. And if that reminds you of how you have felt, and how you have felt ignored and neglected, wouldn't be just by the people in your life, but probably by yourself, by parts of yourself that are focusing on the opera and the theater, rather than on your feelings of being burned.
I'm much more gentle or feminine in nature than my wife is much more masculine in nature. And oftentimes that whole thing about me being the woman or the gentle nature, I feel is taken advantage of or not being appreciated.
When you described Ronald Reagan, did that bring to mind any thoughts of your wife?
Sometimes, yeah.
So now,
Sometimes she can be like Ronald
all right,
Reagan.
now here's what you can do. You can talk to your wife about this dream and say, not as a blame, but as, sometimes I experience you that way, and sometimes I feel this hurt, and I feel like you're not noticing me.
Yeah.
And remember, you also are with her. There's a part of you that is with her milling around. also, so that it's not like she's doing this on her own. There is a part of you that shares that. And then there's the other part of you that does feel burned and that is not getting the kind of attention that it needs. So the dream will give you the implication of what you could do about that. In a real life situation, this woman obviously needs some care. And she needs some notice and some recognition and then some actual care for the burns and for the difficulties that she's in so that she doesn't feel quite that desolate. And that's something you and your wife could do together. You and Ronald Reagan, so to speak, could do that together.
Dreams can be a marvelous tool for communication between people who love each other, between parent and child, and between husband and wife, and between friends. If you talk about your dreams and your feelings about each other, you're not blaming each other. You're saying, I feel this way. I had a dream that showed me this is how I feel and how I experience it. And very often, people who are aggressing against you will feel it more tenderly, and they'll feel less threatened and be able to say, oh, you feel like the Asian woman. And you could say, when you come home from work sometime and your wife feels hard, you know, I feel like that Asian woman again. And your wife can hear it. It's a code, and it's a non-threatening one that can be very nice to have.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So when you've looked at the symbols, the next thing to do is to look at whole dreams as we did and put them all together so that you have a way to use the tool in your day-to-day life.
I think it would be fun now to talk about how you can actually ask your dreams for help. You can actually incubate dreams, which is asking for a dream which naturally wants to solve your problems and putting it into some aspect of your life that you need to work on. And it's very simple to incubate a dream. You simply write down your request before you go to sleep on your piece of paper. When you wake up in the morning, you write down whatever dream you have. It helps if you repeat that question over and over as you fall asleep. When you write down the dream, don't judge it. Don't say, yes, it does or doesn't answer my question or help me with my problem. Just write down the dream, and then you have to learn how to interpret your dreams. While incubation is quite easy, it takes practice to interpret your dreams. And that will be the subject of our next session. So good luck tonight, and go ahead and ask your dreams for some help with a problem in your life.
Hello, my name is Loma Flowers.
And mine is Gayle Delaney. And today we're going to take a look at how we interpret dreams using the definition method. We call it the descriptive definition method. And we're going to ask our guests to tell us their dreams, and we're going to set up an interview in which Loma and I are people from another planet. We're going to ask them very simple questions. And the point of this is to intrude as little of our projections on the dreamer's experience as possible. And you'll see how it works.
So, I think, Belinda, you had a dream. Could you tell us the dream that you described to us?
Yes, it was beautiful. I had this beautiful dream about 3 butterflies. I mean, they were just huge butterflies. And in the dream, I was so peaceful, and I had so much joy. So I knew it was a dream of God. And in the dream, I was trying to get my mother to come over and look at the butterflies because they were so beautiful. I remember that vividly. And they were all different colors, beautiful colors. They were absolutely gorgeous.
Can you tell us what you felt in the dream? You felt peace? Anything else?
Yes, I felt peace, I felt free, and I felt joy in the dream. Because in the past, I had been having so many bad dreams. So I knew that that was a dream of God.
So this was like an interlude, then, in a series of distressful kinds of dreams.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your mother?
In the dream, my mother, she came over to look at the butterflies, and she was pretty peaceful in the dream also.
Can you tell us a little bit about her personality? What kind of a character she is? Usually,
she's a pretty happy person, pretty outgoing, and she's usually happy most of the time.
How do you get along with your mom?
Most of the time, we get along pretty good.
And lately, when you had the dream, were you getting along?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we were.
So was it a nice feeling to have your mother share this experience?
Yes, it was. Not only that, I'm glad you brought that up because, see, my mother didn't raise me. My grandparents raised me. And it's like my mother and I now are getting to know each other.
Oh, so she's a new acquaintance, so to speak.
Yes, we've been living together for the last 3 years.
I see. And when you had this dream, you were living together.
Right.
So is there some way in your life itself that there's a happy, easygoing, I think you said, part of you, or part of you that's like your mom, that's usually happy, usually...
Yes, most of the time I'm pretty happy.
Is this a part of you that you're only recently getting acquainted with, or is this a part of you you've known all your life?
This is a part of me that I'm just really getting acquainted with, and especially with my mother, because I never knew my mother.
So your mother image could represent both your mother and the part of you that is like your mother.
Right.
Coming at a time of very unpleasant dreams, and we can guess some stress, and you have this beautiful experience of God. Was that an experience just like experiences you've had during your waking states, or was this different in some way?
It was different.
How?
Well, it's very seldom I ever have a good dream. Most of the dreams I have are pretty bad.
But how about this particular quality of joy and of freedom? Was that special? Was it more intense?
That was definitely special.
That's one of the greatest.
Very special.
And you said there were 3 butterflies. Numbers are sort of interesting when they come up in dreams. Is 3 a number of any meaning to you?
To me, it was one of God's favorite numbers. And also, there's 3 of us in the family.
So one image can bring in many different feelings and associations.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, there was 3, me, my mother, and my brother. And then there's me, my husband, and my daughter.
One of the greatest gifts that dreams can give you is a new experience, a new feeling of joy, of beauty, of compassion, of different feelings. But you can actually be introduced to new levels of understanding and of experience for the first time in a dream. So you were very lucky and you remembered that. That was good.
And it's often very useful, I think, when you have a time of stress and when you're feeling distressed and uncomfortable, anxious, unhappy, to have a reminder of what peace feels like and what comfort or spirituality, or for you a connection with God, what that would feel like for you, so that one keeps in mind a goal as you go through the hard times and try and work through the problems. You have clearly in your mind what the resolution would be for you.
In fact, you can actually ask for dreams when you're going through a very difficult time, if you are mourning the loss of someone, and if you're contending with that pain and not just denying it. Your dreams will be very cooperative if periodically you ask for dreams of refreshment, peace, beauty, or joy. You can have a dream that will give you a respite, and so you can go back into the fray and be refreshed, which is helpful.
I was wondering, she mentioned how colorful it was. Does everyone dream in color, or are all dreams colored?
Probably. We guess when we see people sleeping in sleep laboratories and wake them up right away from the dream, usually the dream will come out in color. But many people remember only black and white. It's probably because we don't remember our dreams very fully. And as you get better and better at recalling your dreams, you'll have more and more color in a larger number of your dreams. However, vivid color will break through in vivid dreams.
I think sometimes, too, it can be that people remember their dreams as grays or darker colors when they're depressed. They may find that as they get better and feel more joy in their life, then more vivid colors come through as more vivid emotions come through. So for some people, colors are clearly associated with emotions, and you'll find a change in them as there's a change in mood with various people. Again, one would have to ask oneself, if you dreamed of purple or you dreamed of red, what does purple mean to me, and what does red mean to me? That's a very interesting dream, Belinda, and it's got a lovely quality of color and feeling in it. Maybe we should try a different kind of dream.
Well, how about Ron's dream? You had an interesting one.
Yeah, last week, the dream started, I had a big project or demonstration I had to give in front of an audience, and I couldn't get it done. I couldn't do it. I had to go to the bathroom. I had to run to get places, to get to this presentation, and every time I pushed and ran, I couldn't get there. I was like I wasn't moving very fast. I pushed as hard as I could, and I never did get that presentation done. And then the scene shifted completely.
Before you shift the scene, let's stay with the feelings of that
Okay.
one for a minute. Tell me, what did it feel like? Here you are rushing to do your presentation. You can't get going. You have to go to the bathroom. Why don't you? Or can you not find the bathroom? Or everything's just a rush? Or confused? Or what?
It seemed I had to go to the bathroom a lot, and I had to keep going back. And suddenly I was lost or misplaced, and I was running to get back to the podium and running to get back to the presentation I had to make. And though I was running with all my might, I was going in slow motion.
Okay, does that remind you of any situation in your life? The way you felt in that dream, not being able to get there, trying, having interruptions, have to go to the bathroom, back and forth?
Because I was aware of your trying to incubate dreams, and I went ahead and tried to incubate a dream, and I asked, the question I was asking is, why do I feel I'm spinning my wheels at school? Why do I feel I'm not getting anywhere in school? I've been in school for several years, and I don't feel like I'm making much progress. And that's the question I asked, was why am I spinning
Is
my
that the
wheels?
feeling? Is that a good description
And
of how it
that
really
is
feels inside?
How it felt. The dream is how it felt.
Lots of pressure.
Running and not getting it done, and my peers looking on, and I don't know where having to go to the bathroom came in, but
Well, how did that feel? That's also a
it
metaphor.
was annoying. It was
Annoying.
always in the way.
Always in the way. Was it a lot of pressure? Needs to take care of
Yeah.
something? Okay. Now, the first part of your scene, and we'll just go over it lightly, anchors you in a life feeling, the feeling you have in school. So that may be what the second half is about. Probably is. So let's see what the second scene was.
Now, the second scene was much more vivid in color and in my memory. We were in a field. It was a hot, dusty, dry field, a lot of grass, no trees, and we were playing. It was kind of a park, and suddenly we had to leave. A red trolley pulled up in the hot sun, and an old Henry Fonda type man. He looked like Henry Fonda to me. Tall and lanky, and he got out. He was the conductor and the driver, and he said, we all have to leave this area because there's a staph infection going around, and we have to leave. And I remember climbing up the steps into this sunny, dusty trolley and walking by this conductor, and I didn't really like him or like the situation having to leave, and that's how it ended.
Okay. In the opening scene of the second part, you're in a dusty park. What does that remind you of? Can you tell me a little bit more of what it's like?
It's like being on a softball diamond, and there's dust flying, and it's more relaxed. It's a bit of a rest. Being in school and working, I don't get much recreation, and I'm dying to play softball, and I want to go out and run around and play. And,
Okay, now, is this sort of a playful park? Do you have a sense that you might play in this environment?
yeah, it's a good place to run around.
You liked it? Were you feeling good in the dream?
It was warm. It was sunny.
Warm and sunny.
And the dusty part, you like that?
I like kicking up dust. And reminds me of tennis shoes and stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
Does that remind you of anything that's actually going on in your life right now, where you might not be fully conscious of it while you're awake, but in fact, you're playing around? You're in a dusty, softball, park-like environment.
Yeah, just my desire to go out and rough it up in the dust and play softball. There are certain parts of school that involved in camera equipment and communications where you get to rough it up. You struggle with this heavy equipment, and you go out in the field, and you come back dirty and sweaty, and it's a lot of fun.
Okay, so that might be the fun part of being in
Yeah.
school. Is it? I mean, that does seem to fit?
That's
You have
what
to
I
tell
like.
us. We're going to depend upon you to correct us when we're wrong, right? That's helpful because we're depending entirely on your response.
And to tell us when we're right. It sounds like that one hits
Yeah,
right
that-
on for you. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So maybe this is the fun part of school. Things are going all right, but suddenly up comes a sort of red, do you say trolley car?
Yeah, red trolley pulls up and...
Well, tell me
Pretend
about
we're
red
from
trolley
Martha.
cars. We've
We're
never
Martha.
seen them before.
Okay, a red trolley car is it's a kind of a box, a square box on wheels that has seats inside. It's kind of old-fashioned looking. It's got a lot of scrolls on it and kind of a roof instead of kind of a house roof instead of a car roof. And it's kind of sunny, lots of windows, or maybe no windows, just lots of open viewing
Do you
places.
especially like or dislike these trolley cars?
I like them. I like them nowadays because I live in a town that has a lot of trolleys driving around. Reminds me of the beach because there's trolleys taking you to the beach. But I've also had bad experiences with trolleys. I had a dream way back in my youth that when I was one of my first dreams I can ever remember was a runaway trolley chasing us, and it was a very scary trolley, very scary dream, and that I remember a lot too. I guess kind of
Mixed
ambivalence,
feelings?
mixed.
Mixed feelings.
So trolley cars are something that you like because they would take you to the beach and you have good associations with them, but
Yeah.
you have a childhood association of them getting out of control.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's sort of running wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So trolley cars take you to fun places and they can get out of control.
Yeah.
And this trolley car, it's a red one. Is that a common color for trolley cars?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any special thing about red trolley cars? Or is it
Are they
just
different from green trolley cars?
I just read a book once by Ray Bradbury where there was a red trolley car in it. And I
And-
liked the image, I liked the book.
like the image? Did that trolley car play any particular role that comes to mind?
In my dream or in the book?
In the book.
In the book it was very sad because it was he described the last running of the trolley car before buses took over. And it was very sad. It was
Because what was being lost?
the beauty and the fun of a trolley car compared to this new bus, smelly bus coming up. And
Okay. Now there was a Henry Fonda type conductor.
yeah,
We don't know who Henry Fonda is, correct? Tell us.
this Henry Fonda image in the dream was a tall, lanky, older guy with sunken cheeks and kind of scruffy beard, grayish-white hair, kind of gruffy looking, yet Henry Fonda to me is kind of kind or gentle underneath, but he's still kind of rough on the outside. Yeah, that's about it.
Is there anyone in your life or any part of you that you might describe as kind and gentle on the inside, but sort of gruff and rough on the outside?
That's where that doesn't ring a bell to me very much.
Think about the people that you know. This is a dream probably about school. And think about either yourself in school, one of your teachers, one of your administrators, an advisor, somebody in school who reminds you of Henry Fonda, the sort of gruff,
Yeah, I have.
rough-looking outside and kind of kind.
Or any males in your family?
Okay, there's an instructor in a school that is kind of a bear or an ogre sometimes, and yet he's a teddy bear too.
Okay.
Kind of that way. He doesn't look at all like the Henry Fonda in my
Well,
image.
doesn't have to look like him. We want to know if he feels like
Yeah,
him.
he
Does he
would
have- does
feel
he
like
really?
this. Also, just I could see my peer group, the students around me, are kind of like this, or the older students or the faculty in general, kind of
Have the mixed quality?
this mixed Henry Fonda, older, gruff but kind of kind also.
And this Henry Fonda fellow is taking you away, and you don't particularly want to go. Is that
Yeah.
right? Away from the pleasant environment that you know in school. What's the reason that he gives?
There was a staph infection going around.
What is a staph infection?
You
You don't have to tell us facts. Help
It's
us
a-
just a little bit to know.
I guess a germ or a bacteria or a virus or something that could get into you and possibly kill you,
What causes
could
them?
injure you. I don't know.
It's okay.
I don't
It's
know.
all right. Think of the word staph infection.
Yeah, that's funny now that you think about it.
Well, what do you
The-
find when you think about
The
it?
school staff, the
The pun. Uh-huh.
yeah.
So if you were telling yourself in your dream, if you were having a Henry Fonda character come up and say, you have to leave this pleasant environment because there's a staph infection going on here, what might that be saying to you?
That maybe, now that you look at it, maybe the school is not the place for me, or maybe the area of study I'm in is wrong, or maybe I've got to avoid certain instructors, or
How about the infection? What would that infection be? What's the quality of the staph infection?
maybe it's what they're trying to teach me, or maybe it's, I don't,
It's okay. It takes a while for these things to fall into place, and we're trying not to give you our interpretations because you're the one who knows about your life experience. It takes time for it to settle in. And sometimes just reviewing the dream helps. The first part was all that discomfort you were conscious of feeling. Then the second part, you're in the park, dusty scene, things are feeling pretty good until the red trolley car. Red trolley cars can be wonderful and romantic, take you to the beach. They can also be out of control. This guy, whom you don't particularly like, he's got a feeling I hear that you don't like very well, a Henry Fonda feeling. He's all right on the inside, but on the outside he's gruff and he's rough. And he says, you've got to leave here because there's a staph infection. Is there an infection in the staph in your environment that you don't want to catch?
I don't know, I haven't thought of it very much.
Take a moment now and just think, is there a style, a way of being, or something like that that's a style that would be like an infection that the staph has?
Not in any one instructor, but maybe in the group of them, a little bit here and there. A way of doing one thing, another has a different way, or a way of teaching that one has that I don't like, or some methods, some ideas.
Is there anything general that's shared in the environment? You said some of the teachers are like a Henry Fonda. Is there anything general that's like a staph infection at the staff? A feeling tone, or
they're very, their knowledge and experience is overwhelming to me, because I'm brand new in this, and they're pretty good professionals, and some of them are brilliant, and I don't feel like I could ever attain what they have, and yet I feel pressured to be that good.
You feel a lot of pressure, and that's clear, especially in the first part of the dream.
Yes.
In the second part, though, you get to the part that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that pleasure of the out in the field, kicking up the dust. It's a park, a pretty environment.
I enjoy the
Is there some way in which that's been interrupted for you? Is there some way in which the fun part of school was interrupted for you?
Yeah, different classes, different parts of the TV industry. I like the production side, the going out with the camera and going out in the field and producing a show or a spot or a little feature for news. And then there's the side of producing and dealing with unions and knowing the technology as it's changing so rapidly and becoming, they're going into computers, and I don't know computers. And
trolleys are changing to buses, maybe?
Oh, yeah. That's interesting, wow. But yeah, there's a fun side and a safe side, and there's a difficult, high-pressure, intimidating side.
That feels like it might get out of control.
Yeah.
The last trolley car?
And it seems like all the instructors are saying,
Get on board.
You've got to know this hard, this tough side, and they're saying this fun side is fading out with new technology.
Oh.
And that alarms me. That says I've got to do something else.
So Henry Fonda's saying, come on, you have to get on.
You got to get on the computer trolley car.
Yeah, exactly.
Last one going, and then we're going to have buses.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's amazing.
Well, thank you.
That's great. So this is a really clear example of the kind of insight that you can get from a dream, and a focused dream, because you incubated a question, you were particularly concerned about career, wondering what you should do about it, and the dream sets up the difficulty so that you have a real clear sense of, yes, this is the way I feel, and then gives you a sense of where that comes from, what that's about, so that you can have a look at, is it worth it, you know, is the play on the diamond sufficient fun that it's worth getting in the trolley car when the instructors say, okay, time to get in the trolley car? Or is that something that's not worth it for you? As with most careers, it's a trade-off between what you like and the part of the job that you have to do that goes with the fun part. And for each of us, we have to make those personal decisions about what's worth it and what's not worth it. And your dream, I think, gives you some orientation and gives you the emphasis of what qualities are that you have to make a decision between. And you'll have lots of time to think that through, probably after finals.
I'd like to hear another dream. Which one of you were just dying to tell a dream?
We can at least do part of it if we can't
Yes.
finish it all.
I dream a lot, but I have some trouble remembering my dreams, and I'd like to remember them better.
Well, that's not too difficult. If you take a notepad and put it by your bed tonight and keep it there, and before you go to sleep, write down 3 or 4 lines of the emotional highlights of your day. What did I do and what did I feel today? Just a few lines. Don't make it a chore. And then when you wake up in the morning, think backwards. Think, what was I just thinking about? Because it may not even feel like a dream. Next thing you'll tell yourself it's only a little fragment, it's not worth recalling. Write it down. Whatever you have, write it down. Within a week or 2, you'll start remembering too many dreams to write down. And then you have to tell yourself, I'll only write down as many dreams as I find fun to write down. 1 or 2 dreams a week is plenty for most people to work on while you're learning how to interpret your dreams. But if you keep that notepad by your bed, they'll start coming to you. It's just a matter of becoming interested in them again and pulling them before they evaporate by breakfast time.
If you can wake up without an alarm, that is also helpful because it doesn't distract you the minute you wake up. Some people can train themselves to wake up 2 or 3 minutes before the alarm and to write down the dream before you do anything else, before you get out of bed. That's very helpful.
I wonder, is there any significance to reoccurring dreams that happen over and over again?
That's a very interesting question because I think most of us will get recurring dreams from time to time. What it usually means is that there's a particular problem in your life that you haven't yet dealt with. And the dream presents the problem, represents the problem, presents the problem again.
It's like a broken record that's hit a rut.
Trying to work through this particular difficulty, trying to give you possibly a new insight on what the problem is. And I think what it means is that if you start to look at that, look at some of the symbols in the dream, even if you can't interpret the whole dream, you can start to look at some of those symbols. And if you have a friend with whom you can talk about the dream, what we like to teach is for people to help other people work out their own dreams. So to have someone ask you the kind of questions that we just asked for this dream, and see if you can come up with the definitions for the factors in your dream, that will help you understand what the issue is that's being addressed. And even if you don't get the whole interpretation of the dream, often with a recurrent dream, if you get a little piece of it, it will move it on a little bit. And what it will readdress will be the parts that you didn't get, and it will rephrase them and rephrase them for you. One woman I know incubated a dream about a relationship that she had and was wondering why she was in and out of the same relationship over and over and over again. She said her friends were sick of hearing about it. She was sick of hearing about it. She didn't know what it was all about. So she incubated a dream in which she said, what is this relationship about? She gets a very brief dream in which she's going to the refrigerator, thinks that it's empty, opens it up, and lo and behold, inside there's just enough leftovers to tide her over till she has time to cook. End of dream. Well, she interpreted it immediately that this was sort of a fill-in relationship, and it was kind of a leftover and a make-do. She didn't like that. She didn't value herself in that way. She didn't think that was very honorable. So what she thought was, I don't like this dream. I'm going to incubate the question again. So the beginning of her second dream was she was going back to the optometrist for a new pair of glasses because she didn't like the first pair that she got. And then, of course, the dream went on and explained the problem in a different way, but basically she was going to various restaurants along the way, and there was something wrong with all of them. Some were too noisy, some had no salad dressing on the salads, others had not enough seats, etc. But it explained to her more clearly.
And once you understand what your recurring dream is about, it will no longer recur. It might come back in a developed form. All right, you've understood this much of the problem, now here's the next part. Or it might entirely disappear. I've spoken to people who've had nightmares recurring once a week, once a month for as long as 25 years. And working on the dream in one day can end that whole cycle. Your nightmares and your recurring nightmares can be really your best friends because they are about very important issues that are causing you trouble, and you're not getting it while you're awake. So that while you're asleep, you're willing to look at the distress you feel, and the dream will give you the hints on how to understand what's going on and how to resolve the problem.
You described having a series of bad dreams, Belinda, when we talked earlier in the session. And it would be interesting for you to take a look at those and look at the symbols that were in the dream and try and interpret some of them. Often we're so afraid of our nightmares that we tend to try and get rid of them as fast as we can, put the light on, look under the bed, check all the doors and windows are locked, and think, oh, thank God that's gone. Sometimes we may need to do that because there's so much anxiety that is generated by a nightmare. But if you can, in the morning, when you're feeling braver, take a look at the nightmare, or even write it down in the night when you're anxious about it. Then take a look at it piece by piece. You will often find that it has some very useful information that will tell you what is going wrong in your life in a way that you could address it before the real life nightmare arrives. So it's almost a forewarning of something that is coming up that will give you a chance to head off a real nightmare.
For example, I had one client who had a new boyfriend, and she was fast falling in love with him. And she dreamt one night that he had stabbed her in the back. She woke up screaming. And so I asked her, was there any way that in this actual relationship with this actual boyfriend, that he might be the sort of fellow who would stab you in the back, but you haven't quite been willing to face that? Oh, no, no, no. But in a few months, he emotionally stabbed her in the back. Had she been willing to look at that a little bit more carefully, that she had known, she picked up subtle cues and how he related to other people, but she wasn't willing to face it. And so if you can understand the nightmare now, it'll usually save you trouble later on down the road.
Even if you don't see it in your day-to-day life and you're aware that you've had the nightmare, you can keep that in the back of your mind. Because what it does mean is when things start to get clearer that indeed you are about to be stabbed in the back, then you will see it coming much more quickly because you've had a warning and you may anticipate it. If you've had no warning whatsoever, it often catches us totally by surprise and we don't quite know what to do with it. Having thought about the possibility beforehand, you can see it coming with some sort of warning.
I know I had two relationships in which I had dreams the night before they broke up, so when it did happen the next day, I wasn't totally unaware that it was going to happen.
That's an
Exactly.
excellent example.
And you knew. Now there's one more thing you can do with your nightmares. You can say, next time I'm in my nightmare, I'm going to stay in it long enough to remember it clearly. And when you wake up, hold on to the nightmare, consider it your friend, and write it down.
And
all of your dreams can be extremely useful. And if you take one at a time and look at each image as if this image I carefully created to give myself a message, what am I trying to tell myself? You can go through the step-by-step process of defining and describing each of the images in your dream.
The setting, the place, and the people.
Until the dream tells you what it means. And I wish you all good luck.
And
I
pleasant
hope,
dreams.
Yeah, and I hope that you get a Sandman who gives you dreams whenever you need them. Good luck.